Yeah, so I'm here to review the video game adaptation of the Amazing Spider-Man movie. I thought the movie was mediocre to okay at best. How do you think I feel about this video game? The Amazing Spider-Man, the new video game based off the movie, and yeah, the movie was mediocre to okay at best. Looking back on it, it's like I was very kind to it, but the truth is, yeah, it pretty much copied the old movie and brought in a few changes, and it was just a big disappointment. And it's actually, I'm surprised it did as well as it did. I think more people should kind of think about that movie. It actually, if you think about it, does kind of suck. And you know, video game based movies, that's a whole nother genre I could talk about. Resident Evil, go f*** yourself. Those movies are horrible. If you actually enjoy those Resident Evil movies, I question your taste and your sanity, but whatever. That's a whole nother topic. But video games based off of movies, there's been a few good examples. Before I get to the obvious one, there's Ghostbusters. I mean, you know, this is pretty good. Then we get to the shining example, everyone's best example. Hey, that was a good movie, turned out to be a good video game. They took their time with it. Spider-Man 2. Classic. Nintendo. GameCube. Come on. Then we got this. This disaster. Let me get into this. The movie. Alright, what are the pluses? Andrew Garfield is likable. Emma Stone is likable, if not a very good character as Gwen Stacy. That's it. This new game is practically a sequel directly from the end of the movie, alright? Well, that's kind of a good idea. I hate where they go with that. Ends up Spider-Man kind of wants to free Dr. Connors because he feels it wasn't really his fault, it was a lizard that made him do bad things. Okay, so a riot ends up happening and all these prisoners escape and he gets Dr. Connors out of there just because he really likes him or something. It doesn't matter. Why do you need him out? Okay, he's bad. Just because he kind of went a little crazy because of the lizard doesn't mean he himself is still a very good person. He's kind of a crazy dick on his own. And then you get, well, first off, Spider-Man, played by the voice actor who played Donatello in the Ninja Turtles cartoons. I like that actor as Donatello. I hate him as Spider-Man. Because when you're web swinging around all crazy and you hear like Donatello, it's so distinct. It's like, why is Donatello wearing a Spider-Man suit? It's like you're web swinging, it's like, calm down, Donatello. Take that Spider-Man suit off and go fight Shredder, okay? It's distracting. Like, he didn't try to change his voice. Not necessarily that he has to, but it sounded so much like Donatello. It's so distracting. It doesn't even sound close to Andrew Garfield. But you know, there's probably an explanation for that I'll get into in a little bit. Then we get some of the other voice actors. Dr. Connors was horrible. I mean, fucking boring. He sucked. Emma Stone's, whatever. This does not sound like Emma Stone. It doesn't even seem like Gwen Stacy. The character doesn't look like Gwen Stacy. Why even bother have that, oh, it's a direct sequel to the movie. Doesn't even seem like it at all. Then you get other crappy characters like Alistair Smythe and some news reporter. Check it. Good lord, the characters in this game are horrible and I don't like any of them. It's all boring. The writing in this is awful. And let me tell you something about the gameplay. Donatello plays Spider-Man. He's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. That probably explains why more than half the movie spent in f***ing sewers. Good lord, this is Spider-Man. What do you think of Spider-Man? Guy, big red blue suit, web swings through the city, flying over buildings and everything. It's really cool. Okay, well then why is half the game he indoors? It's either he's in the sewers running around or he's in buildings, half of which that is him going through vents like he's in Arkham Asylum. I mean, come on. Arkham Asylum was a good game. The part where you're walking through vents half the time was not. That's one of the problems. They fixed that. Spider-Man copied one of the worst things in this game. That's horrible. It's a lot of Spider-Man crawling through vents to get to places. No. And then he's indoors a lot. Spider-Man does not work indoors. The indoor sections are awful. I mean, they have cool parts where you gotta actually stealth because you won't survive fistfights with certain characters. But good lord. The only good part of that is when you get to stealth, like drop down like upside down and web someone up and attach them to the ceiling. That's the only cool part. And that in itself is a problem, because when you're upside down, it gets pretty disorienting. Because when you're crawling on upside down and then like you're trying to move and trying to do all this stuff like, oh, attack this guy, all of a sudden they see you and they start shooting you. When you're crawling on the wall then upside down, it gets disorienting. And all the indoor stuff, the fighting, good lord, the fighting in this really sucks. It just felt generic and boring for Spider-Man. It just, yeah. And the villains, good lord. You got two villains. You got robots and you got cross species. So you either fighting Rat-Man or the Scorpion or Rhino, or you gotta fight robots. That's horrible. The robots too, I'll get into that, but pretty much all the like cross species you fight indoors. So it's like, okay, I'm trapped in a tight space. It's disorienting to crawl on the ceiling, and now some asshole spitting heat-seeking vomit acid at me or something because I get hit with it 4 times and then I'm dead. Those are the worst villains. They sit there and it's like Left 4 Dead. They just vomit on you, but it'll kill you so easily. Though that's annoying. It becomes physically impossible at times to get past them on normal. Because you gotta stealth and you gotta pick your timing. Because if you don't attack the guy right, they're all gonna see you and they're gonna kill you with this undodgeable vomit. That's horrible. Then the other one's just generic, beat them up because they don't got nothing. And then there's ones that can block everything. Okay. Then there's the robots. It's just like, okay, web them until their little shield stops and then smash them. Boring. And then you get outside of these buildings, which, like the indoor stuff all sucks. You get outside, the web swinging is a problem. For the longest time, it is hard to control. Controlling web swinging, I mean, in the original Spider-Man 2, it was very simplified. You shoot it, it grabs onto a near building, and then you swing, you let go, next one. That's not too hard. This one mixes up old and new things. You got the PlayStation 1 Spider-Man, where it was actually funny, where he's swinging from the clouds. It's like, yeah, he's web swinging, there's not a building. It's just going into the clouds, it doesn't matter. They have that aspect in this, but yet at other times they play like, oh, wait, it has to attach to a building. But then when you shoot it, there's no building. It's like, oh, you can't shoot it now because there's no buildings. And then when you finally do, it didn't attach to a building anyway. So that's stupid, and it's disorienting too. You're just moving all over the place all crazy. You can eventually learn to kind of get a groove going with your web swinging. That doesn't help. The web zipping was kind of cool. Oh god, though, this game is a fail. The gameplay, the fighting, the web swinging becomes problematic. All the combat's just, good lord, the combat's horrible. It wants to rip off Arkham City a lot. You spend way too much time indoors. The writing sucks. With all the cool things in this is like, oh, you can switch into the Spider-Man 3 black suit Spider-Man thing. Yeah, you don't really want to remind people of Spider-Man 3. You just don't. I mean, the movie is slightly underrated, but still, you want to remind people of emo Spider-Man? No. That's the last thing you want to remind people of when they're playing your shitty game, because then it's like, oh, emo Spider-Man and a shitty game. Put them together, now I'm really pissed off. And when you're outside fighting like certain robots, there'll be a lot of giant robots, which was a big thing in the preview for the game. It's true, it's a lot of robot fighting and cross-species fighting. The cross-species piss you off because they're annoying. The robots, it's ridiculous. It's like the end of the Avengers every time you're outside, where there's these giant robots flying all over the place, smashing buildings, and you go in and fight them. And every time you try help, it's like you destroy the city worse. But yet, once you finish, it's like, yeah, the robots blew up, but then it's like, hey, weren't they just smashing buildings? Everything's fine. And no one's pissed off at Spider-Man. Like, hey, they were destroying buildings a little bit, but then Spider-Man came and started rodeoing the thing and riding it, and then he drove it into a building and destroyed it. But no, it's fixed now, and good God, that was horrible. It's just, come on, you could do better than this. Spider-Man 2, the video game, GameCube, like 8 years old or whatever now, and it was twice as good as this. This game has very little. Web swinging's kind of cool once you get a hang of it, and that's it. You got 1 or 2 cool costumes and some cool web swinging. Everything else is an epic fail. This game's terrible. Yeah, the story's awful, and you know what? In addition to the bad story, and the bad levels in general, it's like a chore to get through everything. In between that are long loading screens. Well, basically, they try and make up for it because it's so long, so they added almost like a Twitter feed where it's like just random New York citizens like, hey, that was some crazy shit, or oh, did you see that big robot, or hey, I got thumb in my bum, but I'm still tweeting, how'd that happen? It's like just random thoughts, and none of them really attribute to anything. It's like, oh man, Spider-Man broke out the lizard from jail, that means he's a bad guy, and someone else, no, he's good. It's just like little stuff like that for the story, but these loading screens are unforgivably long. So I go to my apartment. It's like, alright, I want to change my costume. From the city to the apartment. Like 2 minutes. Alright, got my costume. Go back to the city. Again, like 2 minutes. Then I go from there, swing through the city kind of awkwardly to get to the mission, waiting for the cutscene. Almost 4 minutes. That's a lot of loading. And to make up for it with that cheap Twitter thing, that cheap Twitter thing pretty much sucks. There's no interesting thoughts or anything. It's not very funny. There's like one or two that are actually like interesting, but the rest is crap. And it's like that much loading, that's unforgivable. I wanted to physically punch this game in the face. This game's a new reason to hate video games based off movies. I mean, movies based off video games are bad enough. I mean, you got Resident Evil just pissing everyone off. But when you gotta basically play through something as bad as Resident Evil, that makes me mad. Because the movie, whatever, mediocre to lame, okay parts, I don't want to play through it. All it's good for is the web swinging once you get used to it, and that's by the time you wrap it. By the time you wrap it, okay, now I kind of like web swinging because I'm not getting bothered all the time. Alright, I'll go do that. It's like, this game has no replay value. You struggle to wrap it just so you can be done with it, so you can actually do what you want, which is kind of web swing, kind of cool. That's it. This game has nothing to offer. Don't get it. It's bad. Oh my god, a 3.5 out of 10. This game's awful. Just stay away from it. Good god. It's horrible. So if you like this angry review rant, you can like or subscribe. Comment below. Tell me if you actually hated the game or not. What's your favorite Spider-Man game? Tell me that. Because mine, you know, as much as I do like Spider-Man 2, I would say my favorite is the classic PlayStation 1 games, Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro. Those were like part of my childhood. Those were 100 times better than this. Don't even try to compare the graphics, the fighting, everything was better in that game from like early 2000 to this. Go pick up that. That's a good game. Not Spider-Man. Not The Amazing Spider-Man. It's awful. Stay away. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later when I review the Uncharted series. And then, Sleeping Dogs, whenever I wrap this, I'll review it. And I'll also review WWE 13. So, see you guys with those video game reviews coming in a couple weeks, maybe.